Well, my son Ethan was my oldest child. He would be 31 this coming December if he was still alive. Ethan had Down syndrome, but there was a lot more to Ethan than his diagnosis. Well, looking back on his life after he died, very strong throughout his life was his passion and admiration for people in uniform, particularly law enforcement, but that could extend to military. So in January of 2013, it was just a typical Saturday in our life. I was teaching a class during the day, so Ethan had support staff, and they planned to go to a movie. Later in the night, I got a call or a text from his staff letting me know that Ethan didn't want to come home, that he had watched the movie and didn't want to come home. She was having trouble helping him transition from leaving the movie to getting in the car to come home, which is not unusual, again, for somebody with a cognitive disability to let go of one activity and begin a new activity, which we refer to as transitions. And Ethan did not need somebody with eyes on him all the time. So it was perfectly a good move for her to go and get the car and bring it back. He did not have to have somebody with him. When she goes to get the car and she double parks it in front of the theater, she sees Ethan walking back into the theater because he's decided he is not finished. He's going to go watch it again. His staff comes in and she interacts with the security officer who's an off-duty sheriff's deputy. And she indicates that, yes, that he is in there. He has Down syndrome. He doesn't want to go home. His mom, I was just on the phone with his mom. His mom is on her way. And the security guard, who's off-duty officer, says, no, you stay out here. I'll handle this. And at some point right in there, two other security guards who are also off-duty officers join him. So by all accounts, she is being made to stay out in the hallway. By all accounts, he is in the theater, quietly sitting there. Most patrons don't know he's even there. And an officer approaches him very nicely and calmly and says, son, or buddy, or whatever he called him at the time, that you need to leave, you don't have a ticket. And Ethan totally ignores him. The other two officers come in. Ethan continues to just not move, which is very characteristic of somebody with Down syndrome. They begin to give him ultimatums. And so one officer doing the talking, and from what I understand, the ultimatum was, you need to leave or we're going to have to arrest you. Ethan doesn't budge. So two of the officers reach under Ethan's armpits and they're lifting him up to get him to move out of the seat and leave the theater. It's my understanding then that three officers dragged him out of his seat, dragged him out of the row, dragged him down the ramp, and at that point they're turning around the small wall and going to continue down the ramp to go out of the theater, and something happens there. And I don't know that we're ever going to know exactly what happens there, although there are two eyewitnesses that give their report that Ethan somehow ends up on the ground, face down, being handcuffed, that there was an officer kneeling on his back, and his staff is still out in the hall, but she hears him scream. This is where it gets kind of teary-eyed. Hears him scream for her and scream for me. And she bursts into, she just says, I'm coming in, and finds him, he is on the ground, and he stops breathing. We don't know, and it's not being reported, and no one has an explanation for how he was put on the ground. He didn't just lie himself down on his stomach. So somehow he was put down on the ground. That's my belief. And he stopped breathing. And then, so he died. He died, and the coroner's report, the Maryland medical examiner's report, is that Ethan died of asphyxiation, and the cause of death, asphyxiation, manner of death, homicide. But had he been left alone, or somebody waited until I got there, which would have been about 10 to 15 minutes, he would not have died. I mean, he would have still been sitting there watching the movie, and this wouldn't have happened. So we had a lot of questions, and we had to figure out how to tell our other children and how to live without him in the most outrageous way he possibly could have died, at the hands of the very people he idolized. So Clearly, I did not believe at the time, and I still don't believe, that those men intended to kill my son. I will never think that, but it still happened.